Well, welcome back to another episode of the Cheyenne and Arapaho Productions podcast. I'm your host, Darren Brown. I'm also a senior content producer here at Cheyenne and Arapaho Productions. This podcast has been around a very short time, and what we're trying to do is, promote and uplift the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, beginning with, and we'll work our way into other tribes as we go along. But right now, we want to focus on what's going on within the tribes. And with me today is Maghan Muskett, and your title is Federal Programs Administrator, right?
Yes, it is.
Here in the Education Department.
hmm
All right. Well, can first of all explain to me what that is?
Well, basically, I want to say I'm the executive director's kind of right hand man. I just my knowledge in federal programs, my desire to constantly look, research, look at things, study. And when she's not able to go to meetings or be present, then that's where I will step in and go and represent the Department of Education.
Okay, federal programs, and I think most people who are listening in or watching and in Indian country know that without those federal monies, man, the tribes will be a lot different. We obviously we have gaming these days, which is great, but a lot of things get started or even come out of the federal money, right? And it's you can't just say, okay, here, sign here, and you get the money. There's a lot more to it, and so you've been working with them for a while, right?
Yes, I have been working in federal programs grants since I first started here in 2012. And I started out with the Tribal Youth Program, which is a Department of Justice grant. And then we were awarded the State Tribal Education Partnership
Step.
Grant. Yep, STEP in 2000 and I think it was 2012. And I actually came on there as a education specialist. So I was actually working in the schools. And the goal of that program was to actually get tribes educating and understanding federal grants and federal programs like Title One, Title Two, and what those do in the schools and how those funds are utilized. And so for 3 years, that's what I consistently did. I built relationships with public schools, administrators, teachers, the community members, and then the State Department of Education, and building an understanding of what these title grants were and how these monies were supposed to be utilized. And then that built more knowledge of what questions we should be asking the school
Oh,
and
come on
how,
now. There we go.
yeah, and how those funds are reaching our tribal students. And so that's what the First Step grant was a part of. And it's actually a pilot grant. We were
Yeah, I remember
one
that.
of, I think, 3 tribes that received it, and we were in consortium with the Chickasaw Nation. So that was a really big deal that we were able to be a part of that pilot program. Then we went ahead and we reapplied and as a consortium with the Chickasaw Nation. And so we were awarded again. And during that time, that's where they started to build tribal consultations. And so out of that partnership and out of STEP, we kind of just were the forefront of tribal consultations and what those looked like with public schools. And so it was pretty cool because yesterday I had went to a tribal consultation in Moore, which was for the OKC metro area, and seeing where we originally started, where there was no discussion between schools and tribes, where they have an entire day blocked off for us to discuss concerns, to discuss what's working, what's not working in the schools, what do our urban students need, and how they're spending those title funds. And so it was like, literally an entire day of just discussion, sharing, going back and forth, and what tribes we actually have to offer those schools.
Yeah, there was a man. There was a there's a whole other podcast right in there in what you just said, because I love it when I'm interviewing someone here and they talk about something that I know a little something about, because sometimes I just don't. But I love the fact you brought up consultation with tribes when as it regards to education, and I know that, like I said, my children are out of high school now, but they went to more public schools, and I know I'm trying to remember. I was somewhere around maybe 13 or whatever. I started here in 12 also, but I know that I went to an Indian education meeting there, and the committee or whatever. And I had just been discussing here with the JOM people, and I was learning the difference between JOM versus, at the time I think it was Title 6 or 7. I can't remember. They've changed that back and
Yes, it's
forth.
changed multiple
Yeah,
times.
exactly. But I was learning the difference between these federal funds are for this and these come from this, and I was like, and then once I kind of understood that, well, the schools are mandated to consult with the parents committee about how they spend that money, because otherwise they could just spend it on the electric bill or the water bill or whatever.
Hmm.
And I think I just that's listen to you and our executive director Carrie Whitlow talk about these things. It blows my mind that it's only been the last 10, 12 years or so those things have actually happened. And I'm saying they probably happened in the past, but we all know also that there are some schools who just didn't take it upon themselves really to do these proper consultations. And
Hmm.
I'm not trying to be, I'm not making a broad generalization here. I'm just saying that, in a state that has 39 federally recognized tribes, those things weren't always happening. And it's been really cool to see, since I am in this education department now, to see such an emphasis on working with the schools. And I know, like I said, talking about our director again, she's mentioned that there's a town up the road. It's a very large tribal population that did not have a great relationship with the tribes until the last few years or so. And I said, it's amazing that has happened now. And I think it's because of things like these grants that you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we can speak their language now.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
understand.
Yeah, explain that.
Well, even understanding what those title grants are and what they mean. And, a lot of times we go up and we complain and we gripe to the schools, but we don't understand also the restrictions that they're held to, where they're
Yeah.
held back at,
Everyone
how
has
much.
strings.
Yes.
Every piece of federal money has some strings
And,
attached.
and I, sitting in, I got to actually do a audit with the State Department over some public schools, and they do reviews and they're extensive. I mean, we were sitting in there watching them and they were breaking down almost every penny of where this money was going and how it was spent. We actually went and did school visits where we went to different schools in Oklahoma City and they walked around, and I mean, they were checking classrooms, they were pulling students, they were visiting. I mean, they were literally going in investigating these schools and finding out how they're spending these funds. Are they being spent the appropriate way? And that educated us again on the questions we should be asking these schools and how they're spending their funds. And so now the schools, we walk in and we're on the same playing level. Hey, we know what you should be doing. And so we're able to have more of a one-on-one conversation just on the same playing field, because now we have the knowledge that we didn't have before.
What is that saying? If you don't have a seat at the table, then you're on the menu.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I mean, it's funny, but it's true in a sense that like I said, if it's anybody could pull a chair up at the table, but if you don't know what folks are talking about, and if I mean, I think you have to, just like just you and I here, I have to, if I don't really know what you're talking about, then we
Hmm.
really can't have a very intelligent conversation. And I hope that's where we're going today. But I mean, it's true. If you don't, what another, we can throw it out analogies and phrases all day. If you can't, you can't tell the players if you don't have a program or something like that. It's more than just being there
Hmm.
and raising your hand. I got a complaint. It's understanding how the thing works. And I know that from the time that I spent in more with the parent committees, we had a change in the more public administration, with because there were different layers. I mean, there was a person who's like, I think their title is like something like student services administrator. And then underneath that person, there's a Indian education person, and then there's people below there. And I'm like, oh, if you have one breaking that link or someone who doesn't quite get it, the whole thing can fall apart.
Yeah.
So it's really great to see that and that so many people, so many people in this department alone have such a great working knowledge, and we're all seem to be pulling on the same rope now. Man, I'm just full of analogies and stuff
Yeah.
today.
No, that's great.
And I love to see I enjoy it. I'm amazed to see the push that this department is making towards making those things normal.
Yeah. One of the things that excites me is just we started out literally in 3 schools. And they were schools that our then executive director, Teresa Dorsett, had relationships with and knew the superintendents or knew the people, the administration in the school. And so that's what we started out with was 3. We're now at 10.
Yeah.
And that's a really big deal. We've worked with other tribes before that have came in and they're like, how did you get in these schools? Like, how did you get these schools to let you in? How did you get these schools to let you walk in their doors regularly and come and see their students and talk and visit? And the biggest thing we told them was consistency.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
And it's hard because we all have lives, we get sick, we have kids. I mean, it can get like overwhelming. And so, there's days that sometimes like, hey, my kid's sick, I'm not going to make it. And someone else is stepping up like, hey, I'll go for you. Just to show like, hey, someone's going to be there. We are going to be there for those students. And man, those students get so excited to see our staff. I mean, that was probably like the highlight of my day was walking in and those kids already knew like I was going to be there. They'd stop me in the hallway and be like, hey, are you going to pull me out of class today? Just so they want to spend time to
Yeah.
talk. So it's been awesome watching this just kind of grow, like what the needs are of our students and addressing those needs.
And I know that you're talking about federal programs, but how does that work down to direct services? I mean, so yeah, I mean, I know you're working with Carrie, so it's not really about just finding money, finding federal money. It's kind of navigating the waters, right?
Yeah, so the idea behind grants is that they usually give you a time frame and you're building basically building a program and it's something that you want to see if it'll work in your tribe. And then after that, is it something your tribe wants to fund? That's what it comes down to. And so that's, we've been fortunate. We've had STEP twice. And then we were fortunate we had NYCP. So we've had all these years to build just this knowledge of our presence in the school, how this is working. And now that led to AEE, which I think you guys already got to meet with the AEE ladies.
Yeah, we did.
They're awesome, man.
Let's go
They're
back.
such an awesome group.
Tell me what NYCP stands for.
The Native Youth Community Project.
And then now we have AEE, which is
the Academic Excellence and Enrichment Program.
Okay, thank you. For those of you who did not know,
And
AEE.
yes, and so that was so exciting. But I was originally in NYCP, and that was one of my projects. All 3 of them were my projects, but I have sat down with Carrie, and I'm like, okay, what's next? We have this framework that we've utilized in Clinton Public Schools. Now, what are we going to do next? And so her and I talked, brainstormed, and she had brought out a consultant, Mario Molina, out of Arizona, and he had this framework of AEE that he utilized out there. And so he came in, educated us on it, what it looks like. And so this group of ladies is getting us off the ground and tailoring it to what it's going to look like for Cheyenne and Arapaho country. And so that's what's so exciting about it. And that was the whole idea behind grants, is getting us to this point to where, hey, we have a framework, what's working, what's not working. These are what our students need. And now we can build our own tribally funded program for our tribal students in these communities.
Yeah, and based on what you've learned in the past however many years with that federal money to help set up that sort of not really infrastructure, but the model, the knowledge. Yeah, you can't really buy knowledge. It just has to happen. But it doesn't happen without, like you were saying, commitment and the consistency. But to make those things happen, you gotta have a little seed money to get those things going. That's when I think it's is what's great about this podcast and talking with different programs is we can sit back and day to day, no one's thinking about. I mean, well, yeah, people. I know people are thinking about, but day to day, we're just doing day to day stuff because this is what has to be done. Something I shot last week got to be edited today. That type of thing. And I know you guys same way probably. It's like, well, before I can do. I got to do A and B and C before I can even think about H. H. IJK. That's how we know things get stacked up. But it's rare that except for in meetings. But it's cool. It's something like this podcast. We can step back and take a larger view of the whole thing and say, did you realize you guys are way back here and now we're way up here? Look at the progress we've made. How often do you get a chance to do that?
It's funny. Sometimes things pop up in my memories on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I see, oh my gosh, like I remember going to that conference. I remember sitting in there and just listening and learning. And then, even sitting back and it's been a struggle to watch what the State Department of Education is going through. It
Man.
breaks my heart. And, because I was fortunate to be there with two state superintendents who really believed in Native American education and Indian education in Oklahoma. And they were huge supporters of STEP. They were huge supporters of NYCP. And so, I'm nervous, just like a lot of other people are in Oklahoma, about what is going on at the State Department of Education. And so, but that does give me an opportunity to look back and be like, I am so thankful that I was a part of that and that I got to learn from such like amazing people. Dwight Pickering was in there and, he really took me under his wing and educated me, talked to me, shared ideas with me, listened to me. And, I still see him and, I'm still happy to see him. He came to my dad's services.
Yeah, I saw him. That's
yes.
fun.
And so, he just gave me a big old hug and man, it just meant so much to me to see him there. But that was the kind of relationships that we had built with the State Department of Education. And so I do get a chance to look back and just kind of reflect on where I started because, I'm not as loud and boisterous as my dad. I'm a lot more kind of like quiet and listen and how to pay attention. And so, with going into the State Department as a young woman, not knowing anything, it's just thinking to myself like, man, I really walked in there and, talked to these people. I really walked in here and talked to some of the, the people that control pretty much all the school districts and their funding.
Yeah,
They make a lot of their big decisions.
Dwight was we talked to him a number of times, and he was an advocate for what we were doing. And then he left. I was like, oh my gosh, who are you guys going to find? And then they bring in Julian, and he's so good.
Great.
Now he's in D.C.
Yes, Julian was awesome.
We've been fortunate in that regard. I hope you don't mind. You mentioned your dad, and he was a huge advocate for education, and I'm tempted to hit the table. I told you, but I can't tell you how many times did we go shoot video of him, and he said, "Education, education." It's like, because I always wait. It's like, I bet he's going to do it. Keep rolling. I know he's going to do it. And I've told you before, whenever we went and recorded something where Gib was speaking, we're like, whatever you do, keep rolling because you never know what he's going to say. But I said, I guarantee he's going to say something about education. And so let's talk about that.
Oh my gosh, I could say all kinds of things about that.
He just, he like I said, he was always one of our advocates, I felt like, of our program here, Cheyenne and Arapaho Productions. And I just know that it seemed like anytime any education functioned, he was there. I mean, Head Start, on up. And it seemed like he preached that all the time.
A lot of people, it's funny. A lot of people didn't know he was my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh, is that right?
Yes,
Well, you look so much alike. No.
Well, a lot of people, I did my best to keep that separate.
Yeah, I hear you. I understand that.
And so it was so funny because a lot of people would come on, they're like, I didn't even know that was your dad. And I'm like,
Well,
I
because
mean,
I've heard you
and
referred to him as Gib.
yes.
You know, like, well, I
And
would
so,
think you would call him Dad.
yes, and but I just did that out of respect for him and out of respect for my position, and because I was always worried that people would think that I got to where I was
Yeah,
because of
I
him,
understand that.
and but I always tell people I was here like long before he showed up, and so, but my
Well,
dad,
probably not,
yeah.
but not necessarily. But anyway,
um, but my dad, a lot of people don't realize. I don't know if you know my dad's story of how he got to where he's at
I
or where
know
he was
he
at.
always talked about he had a basketball scholarship,
Yeah, well,
and he credits that with so much of the experiences he had early on, which really contributed his overall view of things.
education saved his life. I
Yeah,
mean,
I've heard him say
he
that.
and I mean, he literally meant it. I actually went down with him before in the homes that he grew up in downtown Oklahoma City. And my dad, in an effort to get to school, there would be a almost like a oh gosh, what do you call them? I don't want to say a semi, but they'd be hauling stuff in the morning. And he always knew when this one truck would come by. And my dad would jump on the back of it and sit on it. And that's how he would get halfway to school. And then he would jump off and finish walking the rest of the way. But he knew
Wow.
exactly what time that guy was coming by every day. And the guy, I guess, didn't see him. But my dad would wait when he hit the stop sign. And my dad would jump on the back and ride with him down the road. And then
That's just being
then jump off.
opportunistic, you
And
know?
so whatever he had to do to get there, but he was always in a thirst for knowledge and he always wanted to know more. And basketball was a big part of it, but him understanding how important a college education was and how
Yeah.
important having a career was. He was an EMT.
I remember I heard him say that one time, and
Yes,
that blew me
the
away.
oil business went bad, and he was an EMT, and then he got brave and started his own oil and gas company, Stalking Energy. And he started that when I was in fourth grade. And I remember, I mean, he worked tirelessly and that was his big thing. But he always pushed to us, like, he would always not say, if you go to college, it's when you go to college, when you go to college. And so
Yeah,
that was just put into my head, And I originally went to college I wanted to be a lawyer. And after I got out, I went 4.5 years. I played basketball. And then I was like, I just need a break.
mhm.
Well, then I ended up working in working at enrollment. I worked in enrollment for about 1.5 years. And then I got married and had my son and stayed home with him for a couple of years. And then during that time, I worked with my dad in oil and gas. So I got to have like 2 or 3 years of just like understanding how oil and gas works and reading documents, reading contracts, and correcting things and really interacting with a lot of people. And so Teresa called me. I remember it was like the day before my birthday. And that's how she asked me. She's like, hey, are you ready to come work? And I was all like, I was like, yeah. She kind of explained it to me. I was me working with kids. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. I love kids. I love working with kids. So going back to just education with my dad, last spring, I was trying to think of how we could reach the most students and provide just the maximum services we could, not to our students, just not to our students here in Cheyenne and Arapaho country, but all our students out of state, out of district.
Yeah,
Like
there are a lot.
how
Yeah.
can we get to these students? And I had sat in on some tribal consultations and was hearing some of these other tribes, a few of them talk about the online tutoring portals that they'd been utilizing. And so I started thinking about that, reaching out, contacting these different businesses about what they were offering, and started talking to my dad about it. About like, hey, this is kind of what I want to do. This is my idea. And I mean, he was so excited. I mean, he just grasped it and he just ran with it. I think he was talking about it before I even could get everything rolling. And so he was like wanting to
I love when that happens,
like,
right? You're like, I was thinking, and someone goes, I've been thinking about that for years, you
oh,
know?
well, no, he would like, they were at he was giving a speech somewhere and I'd found some of his notes and he had written varsity tutors. And I'm thinking, I don't even have a contract with these people yet. Like,
Mhm.
why are you telling everybody about them? But that's just how excited that he was, knowing that we would be able to get out to our students that don't live within the service area
Yeah.
and get them tutoring. Because that is one thing we found within these federal grants is that one of the number one things that everybody's needing is tutoring.
Yeah,
It's
and
huge.
I know that I heard you guys were just recently. I found out about this, and actually, I meant to talk that about that at the beginning of this podcast, but we had other stuff. Well, then Ben, here we are, 25 minutes in, here we are. But no, I mean, I heard that, and I'm like, really, that's a cool thing. Tell how does it work?
So basically, what happens is that is an online sign up with an online form. You're going to fill it out, get it to me, and it automatically comes to me, and then I send your information on to Varsity Tutors.
Now,
Um,
is that a nationwide?
yes, it's a
Okay.
nationwide program. It's actually you can look it up at www.varsitytutors.com, and you can just kind of look at their entire website. And from there, they have this is what the tribe is providing. And actually, the Oklahoma State Department of Education just purchased it, and it's going to be available to all students in Oklahoma. But it's 24/7 on demand live chat tutoring. And
Man,
what's
I
so,
could have used that
well,
big time
what's so cool about it
when I
is
was
that
in school.
what's so cool about it is that if you really think about it, that's how most of our kids communicate.
Yeah, these days. Yeah.
Yeah, they communicate via chat. I mean, in Snapchat, all kinds. They're always writing. There's not a whole lot of like talking, and
Yeah,
so
that's true.
that's like a perfect opportunity for them to get tutoring. And so after you get signed up, and the varsity tutors will send me your login information, and then I will send it on to the parents, and then they'll be able to help their student log on. The cool thing about this is that it could be on a laptop, it could be on an iPad, it could be on a phone. As long as you're able to get on to varsitytutors.com, you can log in and start a chat session with them. And I mean, it's pretty cool. Also, the kids are going to be eligible to be able to check out like enrichment courses. I was looking at it earlier, and they had drawing courses. If you're interested in drawing, beginner drawing, showing you walking it through it, you're in a class like an online video chat with
No, that is
somebody,
really
and
cool.
you're in there with like 5 or 6 other people, but you guys are following this person listening, and you're like in a class, almost like a classroom setting. They even have that set up with what was the other one I seen on there? Dinosaurs, archaeology.
Hmm.
They even have celebrity classes where they have celebrity teachers in there talking to you. I don't even know who those people
Yeah.
are yet, but so I was on there kind of looking at it, and I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I'm kind of it's kind of this is just kind of like our pilot year. We're gonna see what it looks like, and how many students out of district are gonna utilize it.
Hmm.
That's what I'm excited about. I'm excited to see how many people out of district take this opportunity and utilize
But
it.
it's not. It's for in district as well.
Yeah, it's for in
Yeah, yeah.
district as well.
And how long? Do you know how long Varsity Tutors has been around? I'm curious. I
They
mean,
said I think since like the early 2000s.
okay, okay. I seems like I had heard of them before, but not. Out here, I was like, well, how are we going to do this? So I'm like, I was thinking, when are our people going to have time to tutor people online? Oh, we couldn't do that. Okay, so but how this is exciting. How soon is this going to be on quote online or available?
It's already available.
Oh, when did it start?
we kicked off January. I think it was
Oh,
January
just this
3rd.
year.
Yeah, just this year.
Wow.
We got everything's online. You just need to get on and go to the link, look on our Facebook page and our Twitter page, and the link will be on there. You just have to get on there, fill everything out.
Wow. How and now? When are you going to start collecting data on and who's
Uh,
using it and how many kids are using it?
I'm hoping to start collecting it monthly.
Hmm.
I would like to keep track of how
Yeah,
many people we
yeah.
have
Obviously,
utilizing it, and how many people that we're reaching. And I think that's the big thing is that our in district people, I love our people. I love being Cheyenne and Arapaho, and but man, I really want to figure out a way to get to those out of district tribal members and
yeah,
students.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely. And I'm hoping that like I said, we just started this podcast about 2 or 3 months ago, and we were up to what a dozen episodes or more. Our hope is, once we get it, and it takes a while to build a brand,
mhm.
but what's great about this is like we're obviously we're shooting video of this, so that will be on YouTube. But the just the audio version, like a regular podcast, is going to be available on a number of streams, a number of platforms, and our producer Hawk would know. But around a dozen, close to a dozen platforms, which I think that's really cool. Yeah, I just think all these people are going to hear our voices.
Yeah, that's oh gosh.
So, but the great thing is like, hopefully it'll be shared and liked and recommended. And hopefully that's how we'll help you guys get the word out about this online tutoring.
Yeah, I mean, I yesterday sitting in tribal consultations, they had videos and of students of urban native students, and and some of the things they said, um, like just wanting to have more of their tribe present. Because Oklahoma City's in that like no zone. There's no tribes
Yeah.
within that
And there are
area.
a ton of tribes there. I
Are
mean, there aren't just 39 represented. There's probably 100 or so, but there's no tribes headquartered in Oklahoma City, really.
Yeah.
You know.
And I'm hoping that this is just an opportunity to really reach them and students get signed up and that they utilize it. They utilize that tutoring because I really think it could be beneficial for them and just give them just a little bit of assistance, a little bit of boost because, those COVID years really hurt a lot of kids.
Yeah, and that's something as an adult, I was thinking, thank God I don't have to deal with something like that. And my kids, well, my son was he's got another year left at OU. He finishes, but when COVID happened, everything was shut down, and he did online for a semester, and he said, "I'm not doing this." I said, "I don't blame you. I have to have some sort of face to face, So I was like, we're just, and you think, okay, it's over. Once the pandemic was over, we all said, okay, everything's back to normal. Well, no, just think there are kids now. There's a whole, not generation, but a whole group of kids who, not only were robbed of senior prom and all those
Yeah.
trips, but they were robbed of face-to-face interaction during their sophomore and junior and senior. I mean, we're just you don't think we'll see the results of that and the repercussions of that for years to come.
Oh, yeah.
Because if those kids were in first grade when it happened, I mean, just think. I mean, does that mean that they're going to play? We're going to have to play catch up until they graduate. That's something as adults we don't really think about that because we weren't in it like that.
The thing is, you have to remember about kids is that they're really resilient.
Yes,
And their brains are, I mean,
they work a lot
they
better than
learn,
ours.
and they learn so much faster than we do.
So-
And
so-
the catch up time isn't as extensive as we thought it was going to be. I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
But they're working really hard to get on grade level, and the teachers are working really hard to help them get on grade
Yeah.
level.
Yeah, but it's like it's still there, and I'm like,
It
I
is.
forget about it because I wasn't, we weren't in school. Thank God, school was a long time ago for me. I tell people, I said, when I was 18, I thought I knew everything, but when I was 21, I was sure I knew everything. But now, as an older dude, I realize I don't know squat. And I'm like, if I can just learn a little something every day, like we're doing right here, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll say, okay, I'm glad you brought that up because that's the online tutoring thing is I meant to talk to you about that at the beginning, but hey, here we are. So that is in place now, and is that a thing where we're trying it as a pilot for? I think you did mention it was a pilot program.
Yes, it is a pilot program.
So we're gonna try that for a year and then see how it works. And
Yeah, we're gonna see how many students sign up for it, how many are utilizing it, and then we'll go from there and what the future purchase looks like.
Okay.
And that's something that we're going to purchase in the future, which I'm hoping that, that's what we do and we continue to do that. Because like I said, it's a big need. Tutoring is such a big need. And
Yeah.
so far, I think I've had over 20 people sign up. It's been kind of slow getting people to get signed up, but 3 of them have been college students. And so that's a big deal because college students, they do need a lot more tutoring. One of the cool things on there is essay review.
Oh
You
man.
you submit an
Wow, I could
essay.
have used that.
Yes, I was thinking, man, I could have too. You submit an essay, and they will review it, and they'll give you suggestions and mark it up and send it back to you.
And it's someone you can trust.
Yes.
Not your roommate or something like that.
Yes, and so that's what I'm hoping a lot of people look
That's
on there and
great.
utilize and realize, like, hey, there are some things on here that we could really use.
Yeah.
And I've got my kids signed up, and I'm already thinking to myself, I'm like, you're going to be getting on here doing this. They have like I said, they have classes. I'm signing up my third grade daughter. There's a bridge and reading class, and it's on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. for 1 hour. And so I think we're gonna like try that out and sign her up for that and have her sit through that, because they do interactive games and stuff with them and help them kind of just become more confident in their reading. And so, I mean, you can always get additional reading assistance.
You hit confidence yesterday, or I'm losing track, but just recently the respect program was in here, and one thing, and I think we talked about the same thing when AEE was in here, and we mentioned not even just Native kids, but sure Native kids, but kids in general. Um, yeah, so let's say let's say you're teaching, and you have a class of 30 kids. There's no, I mean. And you only get to spend that much time with each one of them on a daily basis. It's so hard you're never going to know the backstories of all 30 of those kids. And the thing is, every one of those backstories is going to be so incredibly different. And so it may not be the kids' fault that they couldn't get to school on time every day. It's the fault of the family and their situation. And I think someone, and I forget which program it was, mentioned, a lot of it's about building those kids' confidence. Just like you said, maybe you're not the best reader, but I know that granted I was in school a long time ago, but I mean, you probably still read in class, and I remember there were some kids who weren't good readers, and when it was their turn. It was just painful to watch and painful. As another kid, I was like, don't make this kid read because he's not very good at it.
Yeah.
And I felt sorry. I was like, I wish I could help this kid because I was like, because like at the time I was like, because I can read. But I mean, like, I'm saying how kids are. But I was like, why would the teacher even put them on the spot like that? Because I was like, we're halfway through the year. They know that kid can't read very well. Don't make, I'm just saying those things like that can have a big effect. Let's say that happened in first, second grade. Well, the kid's not going to want to read.
How many did you, when you were younger? Because I know I didn't. Did you have just the teacher in the classroom?
Yeah, and
Okay.
sometimes we had an aide.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, aides are a big thing now. And so a lot of times those teachers, that was going to be the only way they could help
Yes,
someone read.
yes.
And also teaching you to be comfortable speaking out loud in front of a group.
That's a big thing
But
with kids as well.
yeah, I hated
I was
reading
terrible
out
at
loud.
it.
I hated reading out loud. I mean, I could read, but I didn't like reading out loud because sometimes I would stutter because
Yeah,
I'd like start talking too fast. But that's one thing that I've noticed in schools now, that they break up into groups. And a lot of times they'll break you up into groups by your skill level. And so if you're
See, I like that idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
but schools are putting more money to putting aides in there with the
Yeah.
teachers so they can help
Everything
break them
costs.
up.
Golly.
It does. And they're using a lot of their title funds to do that, which it's a smart move. It really is a smart move.
It really is. But I think it's about giving those, some kids are terrible in reading, some are terrible at math, some are terrible at English, and those type of things.
And talking about confidence, I was talking to my son about that last night, was having confidence. And, I started thinking to myself, I made a rule for myself when he plays sports, is that when he's after the game, he usually comes up to me and his dad, and I lean in and I tell him the 3 things I seen he needed to correct. And then I give him a kiss on the forehead and I don't say nothing else. I
Yeah.
tell him I love him, good job. And sometimes I think as parents and even like teachers and school administrators, ask yourself, what one positive thing do
Oh,
you think your
preach,
child has heard
preach.
today?
Yeah.
What is one positive thing your child has heard today? And so I'm like, as a parent, I really try to work on that. Me and my husband do, of trying to speak more life into our children instead of death. That's what I call it. Speak life, don't speak
Yeah.
death. And so, I even think to myself, I'm like, what positive thing have I heard
And
today?
that's well, I'm saying it starts with ourselves too.
Yeah.
I've been guilty of it here and there. Obviously sometimes I joke about it.
Mhm.
Just yesterday I was telling about somebody. We were talking about respect program, and I said, look, everybody's an athlete like me. And I was like, you don't want me playing basketball. You don't want me on your team. But I know. The thing is, we talk about it all the time. You have to be careful what you say to kids because the really good positive thing that you say, that could be the only positive thing they've heard all week
Yeah,
or all
it
month.
really
And I'm
is.
like, oh man. And when you think about that, you're like, man, as adults, we got to be responsible for our kids and other people's too. Well, yeah, that's how you're a good human.
Yeah, I could talk about kids all day. I was then thinking, I was like, we're sitting here talking about this, and I'm thinking, man, I've sat through so many trainings and just learning and lessons of working with kids and how kids are affected and just how their brains work. It's crazy. A lot of people don't realize this, and it drives me insane. But do you realize that our brains are not fully developed until 25 years old?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
They are not like fully developed to make critical decisions until we're 25 years old, but yet they're voting at 18.
I know.
And I was thinking that the
And
other day.
just
I was thinking, man, I graduated from college. I was starting my own life, and I wasn't even like developmentally, mentally prepared for that. And
I look back and I'm like, I can't believe y'all let me drive at 16.
Yes.
And I was like, what were y'all thinking? Hey, but yeah, so to bring it all full circle here, federal programs administrator, but yet you're coming from a place where, you're starting way up here at the federal level, but we're trying to work it where we can get these direct services to our Native kids, and not just Native kids, but that's where we want to begin. And it looks like you enjoy your job.
I love kids.
Yeah.
I love kids. I don't so much love sitting behind a desk, but I love kids.
Yeah, who wants to do that?
Yeah.
I'm glad there are people who do that because I don't want to do it. I want to do other stuff. Well, Maghan, it's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Did we miss anything? Sure. Don't tell me there's something else I missed there.
I don't think so. I think I've said everything I need to say.
Well, real quickly, is there anything else on the horizon that you guys got planned?
I don't know if you've had them come in yet, but I'm pretty excited to hear how the new STEP program is working and what their framework's going to look like. Because the idea, which I don't want to share too much, is that down the road we want to have our own school.
See, I wasn't going to bring that up, but since you did, that's exciting. Oh man!
And I just can't wait. I don't know when you're bringing Carrie and the rest of the STEP ladies in, but that's going to be an exciting conversation, and I really just hope that a lot of people will listen in and just get educated on that.
I know. It's like I said, I've worked in TV news all those years before, and that's a whole other world, But then here I'm in the education department, and I was like, when we first started, I was like, why do we have to go to all these education conferences? Well, now I know. I mean, it's like that's what we do, But no, it's I think Carrie was on. We discussed it a little bit, but yeah, I look forward to that discussion where we can really, pick all the meat off of that bone,
Yeah,
and
I'm
really get
telling
into
you,
that discussion.
it's going to be exciting, and
It
like I
is.
said,
It is. It's an exciting time to be here at this department.
all these things have, starting from the original STEP grant, have gotten us to where we are now.
Yeah,
And
just think you had a hand in it.
And well, yeah, I did, but I'm excited to see what these ladies are going
If
to
I can
do
reach
with
you,
all
I'd
the
pat you on the
knowledge.
back.
I'm excited to see what these
All right.
ladies are going to do with this knowledge and where we're going to go
man.
from now.
Maghan, thank you so much. It has been. See, it went by quickly, right? You were a little nervous that it would, and I was a little nervous because it's only me and you. Normally have like 4 or 5 people here, but it was a good time.
I always feel like Gibbs right by me, and he's making me laugh too.
All right. Well, you know what? It's been a great show. Hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed it.
I appreciate you guys for having me.
Yes. So we will talk to you and see you next time on the next Cheyenne and Arapaho Productions podcast. See you.